I call the Kitty Hawk Town Council to order this Monday, January 4th, 2021 at Kitty Hawk Town Hall. It is now by the clock, 6 p.m. Councilmember Hines is absent and excused. The other four members are present. Would you join us for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Approval of the agenda. I'd like to add item 7B, Hurdle Street comments, to the agenda. With that, do I hear a motion?
I'll approve the agenda, Mr. Mayor, adding item 7B to the agenda.
All right. Is there-
Second?
All right, second. You getting all this, Lynn?
Yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. We were supposed to have a presentation by Bobby Otten, Dare County occupancy tax, but he's not here, so we'll move on without him. Consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Does it have a second?
I'll second.
Jeff? All right, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. We had nothing removed from the consent agenda, so we're in new business. The new business we're starting with is capital project ordinance for the beach nourishment project. Andy, do you want to give us some kind of a,
Yes, if you recall, the beach nourishment project that was completed 4 years ago, during the initial planning stages, the town council has to adopt a specific project ordinance for the beach nourishment. So this project ordinance is for the re-nourishment project that's coming up in 2022. What we'll do is we get into bidding, getting some additional costs as to the construction costs. We'll be revising the ordinance, so you'll see that again, and then you'll see it once when the project's completed in its entirety. So tonight, this ordinance is just recognizing the appropriations for the design and engineering services in the amount of $422,748, and we've been in the process, as you know. The engineers have been already working towards the design of the re-nourishment in 2022. So by adopting this ordinance, you're basically just recognizing this as a project, 2022.
all right, now, Casey, do we have to read this whole thing, or can I perhaps read the first be it ordained in section 1, which kind of covers what we're doing? Is that sufficient?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, that would be sufficient.
All right, for the record then, I'm going to read these two parts so that the public understands what we're doing. Be it ordained by the governing board of the town of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, that pursuant to section 13.2 of chapter 159 of the general statutes of North Carolina, the following capital project ordinance is hereby adopted. Section 1, the project authorized is 2022 Beach Nourishment Project to be financed by special obligation bonds, contributions from Dare County Beach Nourishment Occupancy Tax Fund, ad valorem revenues, and other sources of revenue. The project life is estimated to be through July 2027 and will be amended throughout the project. The rest of the sections go through some rather mundane things that have to be done. And in order to get a special obligation bond, this is one of the first steps to get that done. And we went through heck the first time, but we're trying to get things smoothed out this second time. Do I hear a motion to approve this capital project ordinance?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the capital project ordinance for the beach nourishment project.
Does it have a second?
Second.
Lynn has a second. Is there any other comments or? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, next we have the addition of Turtle Street comments. I'm going to take this off. All right, comments concerning Paper Street Hurdle. As correctly reported by the Coastland Times after the last Kitty Hawk Recreation Committee meeting, the future possibility of turning town-owned Paper Street Hurdle into public access parking for beach access was discussed. Before discussing that further, let me step back and give insight to the role the Recreation Committee plays in this local governing body. The 5-member body is an all-volunteer membership composed of town residents. They act as an advisory group reporting enhanced recreational opportunities within the town to council. They also determine the content of a town master plan used for long-range recreational planning. The plan is necessary for the town to be eligible for grants to add parks, trails, and associated amenities for local and visitor use. Whether any of the items listed on the master plan ever come to fruition is completely up to the presiding council to decide, plan, budget, or seek funding from sources other than town tax revenue. As council liaison to the committee, I brought to their attention several possible town enhancements for considering into the master plan. Hurdle Street parking was discussed as a town-wide need for additional beach parking access for all the 3,000-plus residents of town, as well as visitors. Many questions and answers, such as first steps to determine feasibility, were discussed. To that end, the committee learned that an engineering plan would be required to determine possible layout and actual beach access from Hurdle. For example, does the town own beachside property that can be safely accessed if private property directly across from Hurdle is not available to the town? I advised committee members that local area pushback was normal whenever change was considered. As expected, a full-blown NIMBY bloom has occurred, resulting from a discussion of public use of public property for public benefit as discussed by a public body. My purpose in bringing these comments to public light is to provide breathing room to a majority new and recently installed all-volunteer recreation committee. The committee may include Hurdle Street in the planning document or not. Either way, elected council members will decide which recommendations to consider for budget and follow through considering what will bring the most benefit to the whole town of Kitty Hawk. Comments thus far received by council are being shared with the Recreation Committee. Future comments should continue rightly to come to council. All right. Having said that, yes. Bobby Otten is here. Okay, well, you just have to wait your turn, Bobby. We just moved right on without you, buddy. That's all right. All right. Where are we here then? Okay. Well, we get the town manager out of the way and the town attorney, and then we'll turn to you. How about that?
Sure.
All right. Andy?
Thank you, good evening, Mr. Mayor. I just have one update, some information that I've already shared with the council, but for the general public, the town of Kitty Hawk has received a grant from the North Carolina Department of Natural Resources for $69,000 and some change. That will go towards a trail connection at the Dare County Park to a Birch Lane Trail, which is in the woods, which is in the Kitty Hawk Woods Preserve, which is a 1.8-mile trail. So that'll make that connection. It'll open up additional recreational opportunities for our residents and visitors. The Dare County Tourism Bureau also has held on to some grant funds for us for about $42,000 that will go towards that project as well. So we plan on beginning that project here in the next 2 to 3 months. Hopefully we can get the project constructed before the summer. And it'll consist of about a 500-foot walkway, which is traversing some water over to that new trail. So it'll make a real nice connection. It'll be a good amenity, a good asset to the county, to our residents, and to that park itself. So we're excited about that, and we were glad to that we were able to receive those grant funds. On another note, I know Councilmember Garris, he sits on the current TV board as a representative for the town, and they gave us a grant to fund a history video, and if I could, I'd like to go ahead and just show you that. It's a very short video. Turned out really nice, and you guys will get the first look at it at one of the videos that we've been able to make. So it's sort of a series of history videos, and this is the second series of these videos for Kitty Hawk. And it's captured a lot of the history of our town, and which is something we haven't had in the past. So let me see if I can pull that up here.
Kitty Hawk is one of the oldest towns on the Outer Banks. Long before the Wright brothers shared Addie and Bill Tate's home on Moore Shore Road, there was a small but thriving community spread around the shores of Kitty Hawk Bay. Very few people know Kitty Hawk as well as Cliff Perry.
I'm Clifton Perry. I was born and raised in Kitty Hawk, born in 1936, and I have been the mayor and town council for 26 years in Kitty Hawk. Up Road and Down Road is what used to be Otilla in the up the road, and Kitty Hawk was down the road, had 2 post offices. It was divided in 2 different towns, and sometime when the schoolhouse was built, or sometime it was incorporated and became Kitty Hawk. When I was a kid, this was sort of the hub of Kitty Hawk. To your right over here, there was a country store, and in that store was also a post office, the Kitty Hawk Post Office. The same way they got supplies at the end of Kitty Hawk Road, they had a long pier right there, and tugboat from Elizabeth City came and brought supplies and mail and delivered it to Otilla Post Office. And then they came around through Kitty Hawk Bay, and there was a long pier at the end of Lodgebaum Road, and that's where the tugboat tied up. They had to be way out there because it's a high shoal. And then in 1944, there came a bad storm and tore up the pier into Lodgebaum Road. My daddy had a fish house down there, and he had his fishing supplies, but he used to take the Wright brothers in a skiff sometime down to where they went ashore to fly the airplane, and he pulled them down there and back at different times. Other people did also. And the day that they flew, they asked him, "Don't you want to go with us?" He said, "No, I'm going fishing." My daddy never owned a car. In a horse and cart, my mother used to deliver the milk while he was fishing. We milked cows. In the stores, it was just a few canned goods, and it was no loaf bread or anything like that in those days. And it was flour and salt pork and meat you could buy from the store. Some of it was locally stuff that was killed and sold here. And my daddy also had a lot of beef. I think he had 81 head of cattle at one time, and the cattle were allowed to run loose until they put the bridge across, and then they passed a no fence law. You had to fence up your cattle. And that was kind of the life of Kitty Hawk. It was fish and wildlife that you killed, squirrels and raccoons and ducks and geese, and that was Kitty Hawk. I mean, we didn't buy much stuff.
Beginning in 1942, the Outer Banks was on the front line of World War II as German U-boats prowled offshore, taking a horrific toll on Allied shipping.
Okay, now we're approaching on the top of the hill at what we call Army Camp Hill. And on both sides there was barracks for the men to live in, and on the left side was a big tower with a big scope that looked for submarines offshore. One thing about World War II was that you had to have your blinds dark so that at night no light would shine out. And so Edgar Perry, who was the game warden at the time, he also had a deal with Army that he would go around through the neighborhood and check lights at night. If he saw a light through your windows, he'd come knock on the door and tell you had to secure your lights. Behind me is the Kitty Hawk United Methodist Church, been here for years. And I remember when it was just a wooden church and high steps in the front. And at that time, I got married in 1954, and that's where I was married. I have a picture of my wife and I standing on the steps. So our last stop today is the Kitty Hawk School, which was incorporated with the Up the Road School and the Down the Road School and became what is known as the Kitty Hawk School. That's where I went to school. And also for the kids all the way from Calvins Inlet to down to Nags Head, I came to this school. This is about the location somewhere in this area where Otilla was to my right, and and Kitty Hawk was to my left, and somewhere in this area is where that division was.
Cliff Perry graduated from Kitty Hawk School in 1955, well after the Otilla Post Office closed up shop and the village became stuff of legend. By the 1950s, roads were improving and people were discovering life by the sea. Change was coming to the village of Kitty Hawk, but some things have never changed. The sense of community, family, and history that was so much a part of Kitty Hawk life when Cliff was growing up is still what makes the town a special place.
I didn't know he was that old. And I'm afraid I'm getting closer to him. All right, that was a good one. They got some pictures. Somebody did some research to do that. They sure did. Who did that? Was that Melody?
Benny Baldwin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty good at that, isn't he? Yeah. Okay, you have anything else?
That's all.
Okay, well, I tell you that Cardiff grant, that's good. I'm glad to see that. We have a rec committee that's enthusiastic. They want to go. They know how to get volunteers apparently to do some cleanup and stuff. So that's going to be good. All right, town attorney.
Mayor, I'm gonna spare you guys since you have to hear from one attorney already.
Yeah, we got two of them here at the same time. That's not good, is it?
scary.
All right. All right, before we get into town council, Bobby?
I'm going to take this office if it's.
Please do.
Sure.
We hear better.
I can't talk through it. Thanks for having me here. It's been a while since I've been to Kitty Hawk, and it's always nice to come. So thanks for having me here. I want to talk to you a minute about beach nourishment. Mayor, this is going to be a little redundant for you because this is going to be similar to the conversation we had with you and the other mayors a few weeks ago to sort of open the door and let you know thinking. And now we're at a point where we've got to start making some final decisions. And we wanted to lay it out for you and for your board as well, to tell you what we're thinking, tell you kind of the direction we think we're going in, and then to hear back from you if we're creating problems we weren't aware of, or there's something that comes out of this that we need to know about so that we can figure out how to solve those problems. The whole premise of everything we've done with regard to beach nourishment from the day one is to try to get as much sand on beaches throughout Dare County as we could. And as you know, when we began working on the Kitty Hawk project back in the day, we were trying to figure out how do we make sure that Kitty Hawk, with its much smaller tax base, can benefit from the Beach Nourishment Fund, much as the other towns with the large tax bases have, and get a project to solve some problems that Kitty Hawk did. And we were able to do that through working together, having these kinds of conversations that we're going to have with you tonight, but we had with the other towns, and we found a way to make it work. As some of you here then will recall, when we did those projects, we did an MOU and we sort of all bound the towns together to do one contract so we could save on all of those mobilization costs. But in that MOU with the county, the agreement was that if we got a bid and the bid came in under, or if there was excess funds, that those savings went into the Beach Nourishment Fund to be used for future projects, whether they're in Kitty Hawk or whether they're somewhere else, but it went to enhance the fund because the goal of the Beach Nourishment Fund is to fund everything in Dare County, not just a town or a particular town. With that sort of background in mind, we've gone through and we've worked models. We've got, I think we're on model number 26G. And so we've done a lot of modeling on projects over the last number of years where we take into account the future cost for maintenance. Our premise has been we don't want to do a project if we can't plan for the future maintenance of that project and have the funds available between the county and the town to make that maintenance happen. Otherwise, we're wasting money. The inevitable is going to happen, and we don't want to do that. So we run these models to be sure that we can take care of what we have before we start looking at doing more. And so we've run those models on the projects that are coming forward as well. So we take that, we ran our models over time, and we basically used up most, if not all, of the money, a significant amount of money in the last round of projects in which Kitty Hawk participated. And we projected out the fund as it grows, and so we've got money in the kitty for Kitty Hawk to do we'll cover our share of the maintenance just like we promised and just like we discussed previously. Now, coming forward, 5 years later, we've got 2 more projects that are clamoring for problems. One project has a problem very similar to what Kitty Hawk's problem was. They have ocean overwash and flooding on the ocean side, and that flooding in Avon goes all the way across Highway 12 and closes Highway 12, which is the only north-south artery, as you know, through the villages down there, which shuts off Avon and then shuts off Hatteras Island and people that need to come north or go south. In addition, it's lapsing right into the backyards of a number of homes from a few thousand feet north of the Avon Pier, almost to the southern boundary of Avon. They've got some significant erosion in houses that are right on the edge that are hanging on for dear life. And so with those problems in mind, they're clamoring for a beach nourishment project. When we ran the model to try to help them, there's only about $8.5 million in the fund. And as I said before, we in the fund, we try to make sure that we have money available to cover the future cost of maintenance for the projects we've already done. And then we have a rainy day fund, if you will, that says we're going to have 1 year of debt service in the fund as well. The idea being that we've got to have something in the fund so that if we were to have a storm in May or June that took the whole season out for some reason, that debt that we borrow to do these projects, to leverage these projects as we go forward, has to be paid. And we've got enough money set aside, we could do that if we had that to occur. And so that is one of the things that we hold as well. And so running the model, taking into account future costs, taking into account holding that money for that 1 year debt service, we have, again, about $8.5 million in the fund. And Avon wants to do a project. Well, as luck would have it, Southern Shores needs to do a project as well. And Southern Shores has come to us. Southern Shores has the money for their half or their share. It's not necessarily half, but for what they believe to be their share of the project. And we're struggling to figure out how to do Avon as well. We can probably do one or the other, but without doing something, we can't do both. And so we began looking at the fund, we began looking at what we're contributing. And as luck would have it, a few months ago, each town and the county got a grant from FEMA, or no, not from FEMA, from the state, for $1.4 million to go to beach nourishment. And it's not designated for any particular project, but it is designated that it must be used for beach nourishment. And each of the towns got that. And so in looking at that, what we began thinking was, well, how do we hold the towns harmless? How do we keep them with the same project that they anticipated going forward and still allow the other 2 projects that need to be done as well? And the answer is, if we reduce the funding that we had planned to give to the town by that $1.4 million, put that back in the fund, that allows us to do those other 2 projects if we're prepared and if the people in Avon are prepared to swallow a pretty significant tax increase down there. It would cost them around 40 cents on the 100 to do that down there. So it would be a significant chunk not for the whole village, just for the ocean side. But that would be a significant tax increase for them. But doing that allows the fund to fund Kitty Hawk, for example, as well as the other towns, exactly as we'd always planned to fund them, to do exactly the same project that we'd always planned prior to receiving this grant. And the models say that we still have enough money to do the maintenance 5 years from now for Kitty Hawk and for the other towns, as well as for the 2 projects that we're about to do. And so what our board is saying is we need to get sand on beaches throughout. We can keep and maintain the projects that are currently here in the towns. We can do the maintenance that we're coming up in '22 for the town of Kitty Hawk, just like was planned for the town of Kitty Hawk. And we can accomplish all these things by doing what I just described. And so that's what our plan is going forward, is to reduce those fundings. And you're the first town, so I'm going to see all the towns this week and next. I'll see everybody through Wednesday, and I think I have one meeting next Monday. And then I will have gone to all the towns to have this conversation. And from this, and from what we hear back from you all, we're going to go back and try to, if there's problems or things that we didn't anticipate, or issues, or, you know, somebody tells us, no, it won't allow us to have the project that we all anticipated, then we'll look at it again and see, and we may have to change the direction that we're going. But that's where we're headed. We're not looking necessarily for action from you all, because it's not something that you have to approve or disapprove. But it is something that we definitely want your input on. I've worked closely with your managers, and the mayors have worked closely together. And before COVID, we met monthly, each group, and talked, and we've been able to work these things out. That's how we got all these projects done with the limited money that we had previously. And we believe we can work this out as well. And so that's where we are, and that's what our plan is. And so I'll stop for a moment and answer questions, and then hear from you all about concerns and issues, and then we'll try to see if there's a way we can address them.
Anybody first?
I don't have anything.
The 1.4, of course, was a state grant.
Yes.
So in essence, you're not taking that, you're reducing what we would get out of the kitty of Dare County.
Right. And presumably
Because you can't really touch that,
right.
correct?
And presumably you would replace that with,
Yeah.
to get your project.
Yeah, I just want the public to understand.
Yeah, we can't take your grant money.
That's what I thought.
Right.
Okay. So what we're doing is giving up something that you can, in essence, take anyway, if you decide to do that. And I'm not suggesting that's the tone or
Right.
where we're going.
Yeah,
But it is possible, and that's kind of where your model is having to go.
if we're going to do Southern Shores and we're going to do Avon and try to address their problems as we did with the other towns, this is the only way that we could do it. We've run it. Doug Carter and that group are the ones that run the model. They've been working with us as well. We didn't do this last night. We've been working on it for several months, trying to figure out, actually longer than that. We've been working with Avon for nearly a year, trying to figure it out. We've done the studies down there. We're trying to push this as faster than we normally would, because if we can get Avon hooked in with the Buxton project that's already in the works, then we can save a bunch of money and make our money go further. And so we're doing that as well. And so there's some urgency to getting to the towns and having these conversations, so that at our next board meeting on the 21st, I think it is, or whatever, or the 19th, we can make some decisions, but we just don't want to make them without talking to the towns first and making sure we didn't miss something.
The 8.5 million total in the fund you're talking about, that's a total, not what you were saving. Is that in excess of what you were saving
Yes,
aside?
that's not the total in the fund. That's the excess dollars that are available.
Because we kept putting back whatever was
Right.
saved?
Right.
Okay.
Well, no, because the fund grows. I mean, as the occupancy tax goes up, the fund grows, and so,
Right.
and interest grows, and so the fund grows, and that's all calculated in the model. But yeah, but that's what it is. And this is going to be it. I mean, when we do this, the model, I think it's 2028 or something, 29, something in that time frame, before we have even $5 million in excess funds. So we're going to have used all of the funds available. We will have put, probably close to 100 million or more up north of Oregon Inlet. We will have put probably close to 40 to 50 million south of Oregon Inlet. So we've spread the money out fairly well. Avon and Southern Shores will be funding out of their own funds about 50% of the cost of their project. That's a little more than what Kitty Hawk was, but that's because Kitty Hawk paid what it could pay, and that's what these communities are doing too, is trying to pay what they can pay, and we're trying to make up the difference for them. And so that's where we are.
I assume, Bobby, y'all have had a lot of requests from the people of Avon for some help, correct?
Yeah, the ocean side of Avon has been on us for a while, and we've been to the legislature and tried to find money for that, to try to help them. They've been to the legislature without us looking for money to try to help them with that project, and we haven't been successful. And so where we are is, if we want to go forward, this grant came at a fortuitous time, and also they've got to be prepared to swallow, on the ocean side at least, a pretty big tax increase.
I think you've done a lot of hard work, and I don't think we've got any choice in the matter, really. I think it's the right thing to do.
Again, we've looked at this as a partnership with the towns, and so if you're asking me legally and technically, yeah, you don't have a choice, the board can vote, but that's not how we want to do it, and that's not how I want to do it. I want to talk, and I want to find problems, and if there are problems, I want to work with you to solve them, and not just me, but our board as well. That's why we're here, so.
Well, I think we all want to help everybody.
Yep.
Sure. We're all in it together, but the one thing that I think is bothering all of us is when we got that surprise 1.4 million, I think we all said, oh, if we have inflation or if we have a downturn, which is certainly possible, we've got a little bit of cushion. What happens if that happens and we don't have the 1.4?
I don't know if I know the answer. I mean, there is risk with everything, and our model has a risk. I mean, we've made assumptions on escalating costs. We've made, assumptions on growth of the fund, and certainly if any of those assumptions, with or without these dollars, are different than that, then it could be a problem. That's true with anything that you're projecting out for 10 or 15 years, like we're doing with this model. So I can't tell you, don't worry about it, Mayor, there's no risk. That would be untrue. There is, and we all acknowledge that. But on the information that we have, we've been to the consultants, the ones that are doing your projects or doing our projects. We're working with all of them, and the numbers we've gotten from them, the escalators we've gotten from them, all of those things. Our finance people have worked on the return dollars, and the return dollars are nil. I don't know if your finance director's here, but you're getting, 0.5%, or if you got 1% on your money, you're doing good right now because of the limited investment potential you can do with local government funds. And so, again, that's all factored in, and we believe this will work, but can I tell you none of that's going to change? No, I can't tell you that.
Okay. Well, I wanted the public to understand we're aware of those sort of things. Yeah. It need to be spoken to. When do you need an answer? I don't want to give it to you tonight. We have a council member missing, but I can hold the numbers and get you one.
As much looking for you to say, yes, we're on board, or we voted, and we say, no, don't do that. I'm looking more, what problems does this create for the town of Kitty Hawk, and then how do we solve those problems? I'm more looking for feedback than approval. We want you on board. I mean, we work hard to get everybody on board to help Kitty Hawk and Kill Devil Hills and Duck and Nags Head as we work through all these other projects, and we're trying to do the same thing with Southern Shores and with Avon to make sure, everybody can be protected. Our biggest fear in spending all this money, and we talked about it at some length at Kitty Hawk one night, was we don't do something in Kitty Hawk, or we don't do something in Avon or Southern Shores, and we have houses collapsing on the beach in Avon, which is likely to happen if we don't do anything. The press isn't going to come and stand on the beach in Kitty Hawk and say, what a beautiful beach they have on the Outer Banks. I'm here in Kitty Hawk. They're going to go stand in Avon and say, the Outer Banks has fallen in the water. And we have this huge problem on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And that's going to negatively impact all of our towns and all of our communities, and our tourism is what we all thrive on. And so it's our belief that we can't let that happen. We can't give that excuse for someone to tell us, that we don't have some of the nicest beaches around, which we do, and we're very proud of them.
Well, Kitty Hawk has certainly been on a lot of media's attention in the past,
Sure,
that's for sure.
exactly.
So, and they did, and the media did equate that to the whole of the Outer Banks. We do know that too.
Right.
All right, how about I get back with you later?
Yes.
But I want the other council members' input too. And then I'll give you something
give
more
me-
direct. Will that work?
That'd be fine, again.
All right. Can
And
I,
if you talk with staff and if y'all have questions or thoughts or issues then please share them before we make decisions so we don't miss something.
okay, I do have one thing. Let me give it to you. You take this and get back to me onto it.
Sure.
And tell me if this, I had been asked the question, did some research. So get back to me at a proper time, and I'll pass it along as it might be appropriate.
Okay.
Thank you, Bobby.
Anything else?
Anybody
That's
else?
Thank you, Bobby.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah,
Thank you all for
yeah.
having me, and again, please call with any questions or concerns.
We got your number.
Yes, you did.
Be talking to you tomorrow morning, I guess, again. We're having another meeting.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Bobby.
You too,
Good
Bobby.
evening.
Have a good evening.
All right, Town Council. Jeff, let me start with you tonight.
Okay. First of all, I'd really like to thank Andy. He's worked really hard in getting the trail connection grant. It's been almost 2.5, maybe 3 years since Mayor Perry brought it to the attention to Andy and a few of the council members about the project. And I'm really excited, and I really want to thank Andy. I appreciate it, Andy. I also want to just since I serve on the tourism board, I'd like to thank them also for their holding the grant for us also, so that also help us with the project. And that's all.
Okay, Craig?
Just as usual, thank all the staff for what you've done. We're in a new year, 2021. Hopefully, it's going to be a brighter future for us, and I think it will be. The days and months and weeks ahead are going to be great for us. Happy New Year to the entire staff and to the citizens of Kitty Hawk. Thank you.
I just want to say, Happy New Year. Wear your mask, stay safe.
Okay, and the only thing I want to add to what you said, Jeff, was folks don't realize how much effort goes into something like the Cardiff grant in particular is difficult to get. And you're competing with the whole state. So you have to put a lot of effort into it, a lot of both research and getting people to say, yeah, this is what we need and so forth. So when you get a Cardiff grant, you've done a lot of work. Thank you. All right. Next, we're into public comments. Lynn, do we have anybody signed up?
Yes, sir. David White?
All right. When you come forward, whomever we're speaking to, we allow 3 minutes for public comment, and Lynn will time it. So if you go over 3 minutes, I'll ask you to stop.
Understood. My name's David White, and I have a second residence at 3734 Hallett Street. And first, let me just say that I appreciate the work that the council does, as well as the Recreation Committee. I'm obviously here because on Hurdle Street. And I want to thank you for your public service. It's work that is often unrecognized and unrewarding, or it's very rewarding but not recognized and appreciated. But I want to offer my appreciation. I'm actually going to, based on comments that I heard from you, Mayor, and I'm going to reserve the rest of my NIMBY comments. I sent a letter to each of you. And I've been on the other side of the NIMBY issues, so I understand that. But I'm going to take my time to also congratulate the council and you on the grant for the trail connection. As a property owner and somebody that is thinking about retirement and where I'll retire, and with Kitty Hawk in mind, it's an amenity that I look forward to using frequently. And then, the other thing that I wanted to offer is just to say that I really appreciate that video. I'm with an organization that has just in 2020 celebrated our 100-year anniversary. And so that really struck a chord with me. And I think that it will strike a chord with a lot of people that are interested in the history of this very historic area. And it's very well done. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Lynn?
That's all that have signed up?
Anyone else? I see we have some people in. Okay. Is there anyone on the phone?
Anyone on the telephone that has any public comment?
Let me just check to see.
There are 3 participants in the meeting. All participants have been muted. All participants have been unmuted.
Okay, anybody else on the telephone that has any public comment? Okay.
Let the record show, neither phone nor anyone else in the hall. All right, with that in mind, I'm going to motion to recess to January 25th, 2021 at 9 a.m. for a capital improvement plan workshop here in the hall. Does that have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. We are now adjourned.